Welcome back to Comic Book History. This is episode number 30. And this one I'm talking about, quite possibly one of the best group of villains that Marvel Comics has ever done. Who is this group? The Masters of Evil. Yes. Kind of to some people nowadays, it sounds like a very cheesy name. But if you look at the lineup, like, dang, a lot of really big name villains are part of this group. There's been like several different lineups over the years. Now, the group was created by Stan and Man Lee and Jack the King Kirby in Avengers number 6. This was exactly 2 issues after the debut of the original Baron Zemo in the comics. Baron Heinrich Zemo, who was actually one about... Basically, it was later revealed that he was actually part of a long line of Baron Zemos. I think he's supposed to be the 14th Zemo. Yeah, but he's been there since the 60s. But the original lineup, basically, he formed in issue 6, which is just in issue 6, 7, 9, 10, 15, 16. 16 was also the last time they had the most of the founding members of the Avengers at this point, with the exception of Thor, take a leave of absence while a new lineup basically took over the group. And this new lineup was consisted of Zemo himself, the Black Knight, Enchantress, the Executioner, the Melter, Radioactive Man, and for like one issue they had Wonder Man, basically in his debut issue, issue 9, is when they introduced Wonder Man. Now, if you look at this lineup, you have a Captain America villain, 3 Iron Man villains, and 2 Thor villains. I'm like, this is not bad of a lineup. So, okay, you have Giant Man and the Wasp, who actually are part of the Avengers at this point, and none of their villains are part of this group. Nope. Whirlwind. Egghead does form his own leader. He does form his own incarnation of the Master Evil later on, which I'll get to him in a few minutes. But no Ant-Man Wasp villains. Just Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor. And yeah, Iron Man had the most villains part of this incarnation. Now, thinking, Black Knight, isn't he a hero now? Well, this is actually his uncle. Yes, the only Black Knight who's actually evil. And it's Nathan Grant, who basically was only around for a handful of issues. The guy is dead. Yeah, he's actually one of 2 people, actually 3 people who are part of this initial lineup who actually are dead. Yes. He made very few appearances. He first appeared in, let's see. He made his first appearance in Tales of Astonish, number 52. Technically, he's a Hulk. He started as a Hulk villain, but he actually is an Iron Man villain. Yeah, that's technically what he is. He started out as a enemy, I think it was, of Giant Man, I think it was. Let's see. Yeah, he initially started out as an enemy of Giant Man. So you got Giant Man villain in there. Yep. And then he showed up for at least 4 issues of Avengers, and then he dies in issue 70. Then he basically falls to his death in Tailspin 73. The Enchantress is still very much alive. Now, up this length, the only people who are still alive are the Enchantress, Radioactive Man, and Wonder Man. Yeah, the Melter is actually dead. I think he's dead. Yeah, the original version is dead. Yep. Yeah, the original version has been dead for years. There is a couple of different versions of this character around. They're thinking, oh yeah, oh wait, what about the one who showed up recently? They're like, Stand Up. That's a completely different character altogether. Yep. Yeah, he's part of the Young Masters, and of course there was one that showed up as part of the franchise of villains for Hobgoblin. But of this lamp, only 2 are still alive, like I said. Actually, only 1, because Wonder Man was only part of 1 issue. The only 2 that are still left alive are Radioactive Man and the Enchantress, because all these are dead. In the case of Baron Zemo, he got killed off in issue 16. The Executioner was killed back in the 80s during Walt Simon's run. Black Knight got killed in the 60s. And that's it. Yeah, only like 2 people active. And here's the weird thing, though. The Enchantress, after the incarnation disbanded, her and the Executioner never rejoined. As far as I can tell, if looking at the other lineups, these 2 never... Well, I think maybe... I think the Enchantress did. No, actually, Enchantress did not rejoin the lineup. No, Enchantress and Executioner basically never rejoined this lineup at all. Basically, various different schemes, stuff like that. But it was a quite interesting group. Now, you probably think, oh, Masters of Evil, okay. You're probably thinking, okay, these are basically villains, basically are enemies of other heroes. and yet you had one Ant-Man villain. Well, a guy who made his first appearance in an Ant-Man story, and then later on, a Giant Man story, and then later became Massive Evil. After this incarnation disbanded due to Baron Zemo's death, they had a new incarnation formed by Ultron. I'm not kidding, Ultron. You had Dan Weltman, basically, who joined the group just to betray them. Yeah, he had the reason why he was allowed to join because his uncle was previously part of the original incarnation. Radioactive Man and Melter back from the previous incarnation. Along with him members Whirlwind and Claw. Claw, those of you who already think of, oh yeah, you mean the guy played by Andy Serkis in Avengers Age of Ultron. He's going back to play the character in Black Panther. Yeah, Claw is a Fantastic Four and a Black Panther villain, but he's noteworthy for being a Black Panther villain because a lot of the time he's basically heavily part of Black Panther's origin story in the comics, where Claw actually killed Black Panther's father. Though in Civil War, his father was killed by Baron Zemo. Well, his character called Zemo. It wasn't Baron Zemo, his character called Zemo. Yep. This lineup wasn't around for very long. Not as long as the original incarnation was around for 6 issues. This one was only around for 3 issues. Yeah, this group returned once when they had the Lady Liberator show up, and these guys never showed up again. Then they disappeared for 12 years. Yeah, this lineup initially had formed about a few years after the original lineup's disbandment, and they came back a couple years later. But then after Ultron's incarnation disbanded in issue 83, they disappeared for 12 years, and then they popped up during an issue written by Stephen Grant and former editor-in-chief Jim Shooter. Then later on, Roger Stern took over. This is part of a storyline known as Trial of the Yellow Jacket, which is collected in trade. It's a really awesome storyline. I highly recommend it. Now, Egghead's lineup consisted of himself, the Beetle, Moonstone, Radioactive Man, Scorpion, Shocker, Tiger Shark, and Whirlwind. So if you look at this lineup, you have a Hank Pym villain, 3 Spider-Man villains, an Iron Man villain, a Namor villain, and another Hank Pym, which I'm like, this is interesting. Oh, but what about Moonstone? Moonstone technically is an enemy of nobody. I mean, she's not generally an enemy of anybody. She made her first appearance in the page itself. You can kind of think of her as kind of like originally an enemy for the Hulk, but as far as I know, she's never been a general part of anybody's rogues gallery. Yeah, she's more associated with the group, basically, we'll talk about soon. Yeah, interesting lineup. They disbanded, well, kind of the same reason why that the original lineup disbanded. Because Egghead died. Yeah, he got killed by frickin' Hawkeye by accident. And then you have the Incarnation, which is the most famous lineup, which is basically, according to Marvel, this is the definitive massive storyline called Under Siege, which lasted from issues 273 to 270. This is roughly like 3 years after the previous Incarnation disbanded. This lineup consisted of the second Baron Zemo in the comics, Baron Hamlet Zemo, with the Absorbing Man, a Thor and Hulk villain, Blackout, Black Mamba, Fixer, Goliath, Grey Gargoyle, Mr. Hyde, Moonstone, Screamy Mimi, Tiger Shark, Titana, Whirlwind, the Wrecking Crew, and the second Yellow Jacket, who later joined the Avengers, and in the 90s he got killed by a brainwashed Tony Stark. Yeah, one of the most interesting lineups, and at this point it was probably like the largest lineup basically anybody ever had at this point. Yeah, but as for some of these other guys, Scream Mimi, you can kind of think of her maybe as a villain for Daredevil, but she technically is, well, she made her first appearance in she's kind of also an enemy of the Thing. Well, was anyway. She's now a hero. Now she calls up Songbird. Moonstone still calls him at one point. She calls him Meteorite. Fixer, I believe, was originally an Iron Man villain. Let's see. No, originally the Fixer was, I believe, a Nick Fury villain. Yeah, he was basically just a minor villain who later became part of another group we'll talk about. Titana was enemy. Titana is traditionally enemy of the She-Hulk. Yep, she's traditionally enemy of She-Hulk. And this, I believe, is the second Titana. Yeah, the second Titana. The original one basically got killed off by Scourge of the Underworld in the pages of the Thing. when she was she's like the only female supervillain to get killed off by the Scourge, and she got killed taking a shower. I am not kidding. Basically, the Scourge infiltrated the women's locker room at Unlimited Wrestling. I think it's called Unlimited Class Wrestling. That's what the organization the thing was part of when he was briefly had a wrestling career. The Scourge infiltrated the locker room and then shot the original Titania while she's taking a shower. Probably the most unusual way that Marvel tries to kill off their villains. Yeah, it's quite bizarre. Yeah, this is also a story that the mansion was heavily damaged, something that never happened before, and they had to rebuild later on. But yeah, I think after this story they had to move to Avengers Island 4 was sunk by Doctor Doom, and then of course they had a new mansion built in its place. Yeah, the mansion's been destroyed several times over the years. It's not as big as a recurring joke as when the Xavier Institute is attacked. Oh boy, the recurring joke for that one has been going on since the 60s. Yeah. And then you have an incarnation that absolutely nobody talks about. It's an incarnation formed by Dr. Octopus in 2 issues of Guardians of the Galaxy. The first volume, issues 20 and 29. Yeah, Jim Valentino, you can thank this guy basically for creating this incarnation. The most forgettable incarnation consisted of Dr. Octopus, the Absorbing Man, Gargantua, Jackhammer, Oddball, Powder Keg, Shocker, Titania, Yellow Jacket, and Puff Adder. I'm like, wow. Basically, Dr. Octopus formed a version of the Master Evil consisted of mostly B and C listers, some of whom, if you look at these guys, like, who? Who are these guys? I mean, yeah, people probably heard of Titania, Absorbing Man, but the rest of these guys, no idea who these people are. Yeah, Gargantua was an enemy of the Defenders. Well, the new Defenders. Jackhammer. Daredevil. Not kidding, he's a Daredevil villain. Let's see. Oddball is a... Excuse me. He is a Hawkeye villain. Powder Keg is an enemy of the second Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau. Puff Adder is a Captain America villain, obviously. Yeah, it's the most unusual lineup, basically, that Marvel's ever done. And it's a lineup that nobody wants to talk about anymore because it's so embarrassing. Then we have the Master Evil that became Thunderbolt, which was Zemo, Beetle, Fixer, Goliath, Moonstone, and Scream. Who later, when the Thunderbolts first formed, I will talk about this later on in a future episode. But when they became Thunderbolts, Zemo became Citizen V. I'm not kidding, that's what he became. Beetle became Mach 1, and of course later on, I think he's known as Mach 10 now. Fix became Techno, Goliath became Atlas, Moonstone became Meteor, though she switched back to Moonstone, and Scream became Songbird. And these guys popped up in, well, Avengers. Well, it's kind of a continuation of a lineup basically that had previously formed. And they returned. They returned the previous year in the pages of Amazing Spider-Man. Yep, in issue 283, and then popped up for issue West Coast Avengers. And you had not one but 2 incarnations who fought the Thunderbolts, both led by the Crimson Crow. The original Crimson Crow was Ultron. The second one, it was Justine Hammer, the daughter of Justin Hammer, an old Tony Stark villain. Yep. Now, when I looked up basically what this one looks like with our mask on, like, wow, she's a lovely woman, Justine Hammer, except for the white streak in her hair. Yeah, I've seen women in the comic books basically have white streaks in her hair. She's actually one of 2 I can think of, who actually do that, who actually look like they're very lovely women, and despite the fact they have white streaks in her hair. The only other woman I can think of in comic books currently, who gorgeous woman, but has a white streak in her hair, is probably Ed Brubaker's Velvet series. It's an awesome comic book. Too bad it got ended after like 14 issues. It was a really good comic book in the 70s. Crimson Crow's first lineup, and you probably like half these villains. You're like, who? Abduck, Duck, Bison, Blackwing, Boomerang, Cardinal, Constrictor, Cyclone. I think the second one. Dragonfly, Eel. This is the second one. Also, Flying Tiger, Iceman, Joystick, who later became part of the mass of Thunderbolts. Claw, Lodestone, Man-Ape, Mind Killer, Quicksand, Scorcher, Shatterfish, Shockwave, Slide, Sunstroke, Tiger Shark, and Supercharger. That's a large lineup. And up into another incarnation, two incarnations of this one. This was the largest lineup, basically, we've ever seen. Now, we look at these villains, you're like, okay, so the Crimson Crow, with the exception of Tiger Shark, is mostly a group of C-listers. Yeah, that could explain why Harley remembers these guys. And then her second incarnation was Black Mamba, Cardinal, Cyclone, Gypsy Moth, Hydro Man, Machine Smith, and Mankiller. Mankiller later became a member of Thunderbolts. And Mankiller is a lesbian. Not kidding, she's a lesbian. Yep, that's basically where she is. And then after the second incarnation disbanded, the Masked Evil disappeared for a long time. And I do mean a long time. Let's see. The Masters of the second incarnation made their last known appearance. Let's see. Let me look at this here. Let's see. The Crimson Crow's incarnation. Basically, I think, let's see. 1999. That was the last appearance. And then, roughly 12 years later, we have another lineup. And this is the Shadow Council, which were a group of villains basically from Edward Baker's Secret Avengers run. Not much is known about these guys. We don't know who the members. The only known agent was John Steele and Max Fury. That was it. Max Fury is a LMD, a rogue LMD who thinks he is the real Nick Fury, even though he's an android. And he's currently dead. Yep. And this lineup, Max Fury's lineup, consisted of, you're not going to believe this. Well, originally it was Zemo. Zemo took over later on. We have Bi-Beast, Black Talon, Brothers Grimm, Charon, Constrictor, Crossfire, Damian Hellstrom, a superhero who has swapped between hero and villain, Diablo, Eel, Firebrand, Griffin, Killer Strike, Lady Stiltman, Lasha Vicious, who actually is the original Titania. Basically, she changed her name to that after she was resurrected by the Hood. Letha, Madame Mask, Madcap, Pink Pearl, Porcupine, Princess Python. There's a bit of confusion about this one. Some people think it's the original one or the second one. As far as information I'm concerned, it's the original one. There's no one pop up around, basically, because during the pages, during Dark or Young Avengers, her son apparently killed her when she found that she was a supervillain. And if anybody's ever seen this woman, she's a smoking hot woman, and she's a beautiful snake tamer. Yep. You also have the Ringer, Santanish, Squid, Tiger Shark, Tinker, Vengeance. This is not the original. This is actually another guy who took up the name. Whiplash, the Wrecking Crew, and the Young Masters of Alex Wilder, Black Knight, Coat of Arms, Egghead, Enchantress, second Enchantress, Excavator, Executioner, second one, Marco, Melcher, I think second one, Mudbug, and Radioactive Kid. Yeah, wow, that is a large lineup, and this lineup only, now, basically, it only exists a couple times. This particular lineup of Master was heavily part of Rick Remender's, his run for Secret Avengers. They were part of his first story arc and his last story arc he did, because he did like stuff like the Secret Avengers tie-in to AVX, and there was another story that came right after that. Yeah, this was basically the main villains. Now, I'm thinking, though, Masked Evil, main enemies of the Avengers. Now, when was the last time they officially fought the main team? The last known official time they ever did this, because they've had a few different incarnations, and the last known official time they did this was back in 1987. Not kidding. March 1987 was Avengers 277. So roughly, at this point, it has been 30 years since they fought the main team Avengers. Excuse me. I'm thinking maybe since Mark Waid is a big Marvel history buff, maybe he'll probably have fight Masked Evil. As far as I know, that's not happening. It's like Marvel doesn't want the Master Evil to fight the main team, which they've fought them constantly for over 20 years, and yet they haven't made a physical appearance in the main Avengers book in 30 years. 30 years. What have they been doing? Well, they found a stand-in version, basically with the Hood's criminal army. Batman Master Evil was up. Nope. Can't be bothered to fight them. Have to fight other teams. Yep. And after, well, yeah, this lineup basically made this Rick Remender, Secret Avengers, and Avengers on the cover. As far as I know, this lineup disappeared. There is no explanation what happened to them after Avengers on the cover ended after 10 issues. When they, well, last time they appeared, they took over a helicarrier and became a massive helicarrier. After that, that's it. They never showed up again. As far as I know, they never popped up in any comic book, and their main headquarters was a country run by supervillains. I'm like, wow, that's a really interesting idea, because a lot of the time, the Master Evil technically didn't have a proper base operations over there. Heck, not even Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. The only other time I could think of was basically the base operations. The first no one they had was one that became Thunderbolts Mountain, which basically became the default base operations for them for many years. Now, they got the base operations after they defeated the second version of them. Yeah. And then after this version, there was a version that popped up in the pages of Superior Spider-Man, basically formed by the Light Master, a C-list villain. Yep. And his lineup consisted of himself, Absorbman, Blackout, Mr. Hyde, Titania. It's like, wow, Titania a lot. Whirlwind, and the Wrecking Crew. I'm like, okay, this is a pretty interesting lineup. They only existed for 2 issues. And then they disappeared. They're never seen again. Nope. And then you had the most recent incarnation, who later became part of the group known as the Army of Evil. And this lineup, because this was the third one sung by Baron Hamlet Zemo. And this one basically consists of Atlas, Fixer, Claw, Mankiller, Moonstone, Tiger Shark, Whiplash, and the Wrecking Crew. A few of these people were part of the Thunderbolts, who joined this group for some reason. Yep. Now, there have been a few other versions of this group. For Marvel Ventures, basically, was Abomination, Baron Zemo, Doctor Doom, the leader, and Ultron. The House of M version, which was formed by the Hood, his lineup consisted of Absorbman, Batroc the Leaper, Blizzard, Chemistro, Cobra, Constrictor, Crossbones, Madam Master, who was their relationship in this comic, Mr. Hyde, Nitro, the guy who starts the original Civil War event, Sandman, Titania, Wizard, and Wrecking Crew. Another large incarnation, basically from the first Marvel Ultimate Landscape, consists of Doctor Doom, Arcade, Atuma, Baron Mordo, Bullseye, Byrith, Crimson Dam. This is the Valentine's Shillavos, basically. I'm not sure what number he is. The Destroyer, Enchantress, Executioner, Fing Fing Foom, Grey Gargoyle, Lizard, Loki, Mandarin, MODOK, Mysterio, Radioactive Man, Rhino, Scorpion, Shocker, Tiger Shark, Ultron, Warlord Krang, the Winter Soldier, and the Wrecking Crew. Interestingly enough, though in the comics, Winter Soldier never joined the Mass Evil. He never did. He was still in his brainwash period. I guess they did it because they probably felt like it. Now, Valentine Shukov, I think that's how you pronounce his name. He is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He is the 6th version of He's the 6th version of the Crimson Dynamo. Yep. As far as I know, this particular lineup, basically the last lineup, basically formed by Baron Zemo, only existed briefly in the pages of Thunderbolts, and then they disappeared, never seen again. Now, the counterpart, which I will talk about in the follow-up episode of this one, the Secret Society of Supervillains, which were created by Jerry Conway. I will talk about next episode, but I kind of want to talk about these guys because these are a great group of villains, and yet Marvel just doesn't care about these villains at all. This particular group of villains. These guys have fought the Avengers countless times over the years, but as for the main team, they haven't fought them since 1987. I have no idea why Marvel hasn't allowed them to fight the main team. It's like, oh, they fight the West Coast Avengers, they fight the Thunderbolts several times, they fight the Secret Avengers, they fight a group of teenage Avengers, but not the main team? Seriously, Marvel? Why can't you have them fight the main team? What's wrong with you? But who knows? Maybe Wade basically allowed him to fight in the future, okay? So, that's it for this episode. Stay tuned for the next episode. Now, I was thinking of talking with League of Legion, but I think, why not talk about their counterpart group in DC, the Secret Society of Supervillains. I will talk about like the Injustice Society, the other Justice League villain groups. I'll talk about in later episodes. I kind of want to talk about the Secret Society because they are the DC counterpart to Master Evil. Though they do have something on the Master Evil do have something on the Secret Society of Supervillains. They have a 10-year jump. They have a 10-year start on this thing. Just like how Moore beat them to the punch also on the Lizard by the Lizard and Killer Croc. Killer Croc is technically DC's version of the Lizard, and Moore beat them on basically kind of part of that because his characters are similar. Yep. But I see you on episode 31, which I'll talk about the Secret Society of Supervillains. So then, I will see you there. Bye.